Every character means something. Every character conveys a message, and every death must also carry meaning. Even Benny, the first character to die in the series, served a clear narrative purpose: show to the audience the cruelty and inhumanity of the laboratory. 11 has always represented resilience, hope, and second chances. A girl stolen from her mother, tortured, isolated from society, hunted, and treated like a lab rat her entire life, yet who still managed to survive. She found friends, began to understand her own humanity, learned to see herself beyond the trauma, and constantly fought for the right to have a happy ending. 5 seasons were spent telling the story of a girl who was abused and dehumanized, fighting for her humanity and for a future alongside the people she loves. All of that for nothing? Just for her to accept that she doesn't get a happy ending and die or run away from the people she loves? Over the course of 10 years, we watch 11 go through a journey toward humanity. She learns what it means to be human. She defines who she is, what she likes, what she doesn't like, where her home is, who her family is, only for it all to lead to isolation or death, with none of those responsible ever being punished. Dr. K doesn't even get an ending. According to the Duffers, 11's fate unfolded the way it did because the magic needed to end so the characters could move on. But killing a character like 11 with that justification sends a deeply troubling message that people who survive horrific abuse and fight to reclaim their lives are burdens that need to be overcome. Saying 11 had to be removed from the board so the others could move forward is essentially repeating what the scientists and the military did, treating her as a magical weapon, not as a person. By choosing this ending, the Duffers not only deny 11 the chance to live fully as a human being, but they also condemn Mike to a deeply sad ending, reduced to a spectator of his friend's happiness while trapped reliving memories of the past. All the humanity built around 11 is discarded by the idea that she needed to disappear for the world to move forward, even though Mike very clearly did not move forward. The Duffers have said this ending was planned from the beginning. That's why 11 sacrifices herself at the end of S1 when the show's continuation was uncertain. The problem is that S511 is not the S111. The 11 who died fighting the Demogorgon was not yet a fully realized symbol of hope and second chances. The series evolved, expanded its scale, and deepened its themes, but the ending remained stuck in an early idea that no longer made sense. And it gets worse, the Duffers didn't even have the courage to kill her explicitly. The indecision was so extreme that the result is the worst possible outcome. It's not a clear sacrifice, nor a meaningful survival. It's emptiness. They couldn't even do the wrong thing properly. The conclusion of a character we followed for 10 years, 5 seasons, and 42 episodes is essentially a big nothing. Don't get me wrong, I love stories where the main character dies, but in Stranger Things, that choice does not fit the narrative. Here, it only reinforces a harmful trope that traumatized people don't deserve a chance at life and must be eliminated so others can move forward. They killed the one character they shouldn't kill, while they create Eddie for not having to kill Steve, made Hopper survive the same situation that killed extras, and made the world stop to avoid killing Jonathan and Nancy. To make this ending work, countless narrative elements were ignored, like, for example, Dustin having Brenner's diary, MK Ultra tapes that were never used, Dr. Owens, one of 11's allies, simply disappearing from the story with no explanation. No journalists investigate anything. Murray, a character defined by his distrust of government impunity, exposes nothing, even though he and Nancy already did that in S2. Nancy herself, who explicitly said she wanted to write about Hawkins, does nothing. There were countless ways to place responsibility on the government and protect 11 without requiring her sacrifice, and all of it would have aligned perfectly with real-world history. In the 1990s, the U.S. government's abuses, including MK Ultra, were exposed and victims were finally able to live safer, more dignified lives. In 1991, the USSR collapsed and the Cold War ended. Of course, the characters couldn't have known the Cold War would end 2 years later, but the writers did. It was their responsibility to account for that reality, so Eleven's sacrifice wouldn't be rendered completely meaningless when shortly after, the government is exposed and the Cold War ends anyway. In the end, what remains is the feeling that the show betrayed the very heart of the story it set out to tell. A girl who spent her entire life fighting to exist as a person, only to be removed the moment she was finally ready to live, simply because the creators wanted to push the story forward as far as possible while clinging to the same ending they conceived back in 2015.